Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Easy Cut stamp making class hosted by the Los Gatos Library. Today, we are going to learn this new medium that I just discovered a few years ago at the library. So as you can see here are all of the stamps that I've created over the past couple of years. We did a few classes at our library before COVID. So those were in-person classes, but now we're going to do an online virtual class that will be available for viewing, or you can access it anytime after this is over. It will be posted on our videos page on Facebook, and it will be made available on our YouTube page as well. So before we get started, I just want to point out the different designs I have here. You can create anything you want. Anything that you can draw, you will be able to create. So here is the very first one that I ever did, flower. And you can see the real stamp as well as how it looks on paper. And I got really excited and started making a lot of other ones. So I made this winter beanie, and I also made a little envelope. I like to use this on my letters to people. And this is my name in Korean letters. So that's another one, and it kind of reminds me of those stamps that they use on those official ancient documents back in the day in Asia. And I got really excited again, and I created the squirrel and the skunk. So these ones were a little bit more advanced for me, but it was a lot of fun, and I think you are going to love this medium just as I did. So before we begin, I also wanted to point out that we do have these Easy Cut stamp kits at the library. So let's give you the instructions for how to reserve those. So you can reserve one of these kits on our online catalog, which is at catalog.losgatosca.gov. Just search Art Kit, and then you'll find the Easy Cut stamp kit. Click on that and place a hold with your library card. If you have any trouble doing that, or if you need a library card with us, you can always contact us via email at library@losgatosca.gov. So let me show you what's in this stamp kit once you get it. So it has a supply list on here, a list of things that you must return with the kit when you're done, and a list of things that you can keep. So once you get it, you can open it up, and you'll see that you have a number of different items in here, including this. This is the carving tool that you're going to need. This is an ink pad, so each one will come with one that you will have to return. And it will come with 2 carving blocks, these pink blocks here, that you will get to keep after you carve your designs in them. And it comes with a number of different papers that you can keep. So some tracing paper. I'll show you what to do with that in a second. And then here are some papers, maybe about 3 or 4 of them in each kit, and an envelope just in case you want to send a letter to someone with a handmade card or note that has your stamp printed right here. And inside you'll also see some instructions. So each of our art kits come with instructions, and this one in particular this kit is our only kit that's advised only for adults age 18 and over because of the sharp materials for the carving tools. And so you're going to follow these instructions here once you get the kit to make your design. And yeah, so that's it. Onto our supply list. Most of these are going to be included in our stamp kit that you can check out. And as I mentioned earlier, this is included. It's called the Speedball carving tool. It's called Speedball because that's the brand. And conveniently inside this will unscrew and you're going to find 2 carving tools inside. And I will show you how to attach one at a time these to the top here so that you can carve your design. You're also going to need some tracing paper right here. That comes with the tool. And you're going to need a carving block. This brand is also Speedball. And you're going to need an ink pad. You're also going to need a pencil and an eraser for drawing your design and transferring it over to the block. And of course, you're going to need some paper to test out your designs. And optional, you may need an X-Acto blade like this so that you can cut off the edges that you don't really need. So let's say you were making this design. It's really small, and so if you just wanted to cut it off at the edges here, you can do that with an X-Acto knife. And of course, you can see here that I've used a red ink pad, and in case you want to use different colored ink pads, then you can use baby wipes to wipe them off immediately so that they're pretty much all the ink is gone, so that it won't transfer onto a different ink pad once you use it again. And of course, we want to encourage everybody to share your work with us. We love seeing your work and your creativity. So here on each art kit, there's a little note to tag us on social media when you share your artwork online. We'd love to see your amazing work. And here's our Instagram handle. And of course, you can always create more art with us on our videos page on Facebook and also our YouTube. We have lots of different types of art classes available to you. So let's get started with making our blocks. You are going to need only 4 supplies right now for the beginning portion, which is your tracing paper, your carving block, your pencil, and your eraser. And keep in mind that this block is only maybe about 2 inches by 2 inches, so it's quite small. And so I encourage you to think of a more simple design. So what are some different designs that we can do that are pretty simple? I would say maybe like a house would be kind of simple. Something like this, a window, and a door, and a chimney, and maybe a flower, something like that. Keep it pretty simple. Or you can do maybe a flower like the one that I showed you. Something like this, maybe with some other sorts of designs on the petals that you can carve out. You can do like lines like this. You can do a butterfly. any one of those would be pretty simple to do. You can do a heart with some kind of abstract design inside. Some other shapes, something like that. And before you do something like this, you might want to think about, oh, do I have the energy to kind of do these intricate type of lines? Something like this is pretty easy though, but whatever you're comfortable with. So think about, what do I want to carve? Do I want to carve really small shapes like this, or do I want to keep everything pretty big and easy for this time? It's totally up to you. So for my design today, I'm going to do a ginkgo leaf, and they have a bunch of ginkgo trees at Oak Meadow Park and Vasona near the lake. If you've never seen one of those before, you can go check it out. You want to make sure that your design fits on your carving block, so don't make it too big. And if you want to be very exact, you can sort of trace your block to get an idea of just how big it is. So it's yay big, and I'm going to start drawing a ginkgo leaf. And keep in mind also that whatever you draw is going to be transferred backwards to your block. So for example, this design here, the chimney is actually going to be on the right side, and the flower is going to be on the right, the door is going to be on the left. Okay. I don't really care which direction my ginkgo leaf is going to go, so I'm just going to start drawing it however I like. And I'm copying an image from Google Images right now. You can copy me, or you can have your own drawing of any other sort of item. So feel free to spend time on it. Make sure that it's the direction that you want it to go, so that once we transfer it over, I'm going to turn this upside down, and I'm going to line it up here with my block, and I'm going to make sure that it's in the exact spot that I want it to be. And I'm going to take my eraser, and I'm going to rub my design on top. So it would probably help if you cut out your drawing and then you put it on top like this, so that it's not sort of wiggling around and loose. So here we go. I'm gonna rub it on top. Of course, you have the option of just drawing directly onto your block. So you don't necessarily need the tracing paper in order to make it work. But this sort of just helps, especially if you're just beginning to start out. If you don't want to imagine everything backwards and draw it backwards, then you can just draw it however you want. And something like a leaf or a butterfly or a flower, it doesn't really matter which direction it's going. So make sure that I pressed pretty hard, and there is my design. See that? It's like magic. All right, and what I want to mention here is one of the reasons I love this medium is because it's so reusable, right? So I just created a drawing of a ginkgo leaf and a bunch of other drawings here that I can use for other purposes, or I can make more stamps out of them if I want, you know, another ginkgo leaf design, but slightly different. I can use this again. And you saw my squirrel design before. I still have my drawing from that. So there's my squirrel, and oh, and here's my skunk design. So I can reuse these drawings for another art project, or I can just have these for reference if I wanted to make a similar one, right? And of course, stamps are so reusable. You can keep using them over and over and over again. So it's not like it's a one-time thing. All right, so here's my design. And you finish up yours, finish up your drawing and transferring it over. Remember after you've drawn it, to flip it upside down so that the pencil drawing is on the other side, and then place it on top and use your eraser to transfer your design over. Okay, so here's my design, here's my block. Now you're going to need your Speedball carving tool, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, inside you're going to take out your tools. Here's my 2 tools. If you actually buy one of these carving tools, they sell them on Blick, the art store called Blick, B-L-I-C-K, and they actually come with more carving tools of different sizes. So I just wanted to show you, if you got really into this medium and you wanted to buy your own, you can. So here are some other sizes of tools here, and it comes with a little knife as well. We didn't include these in our kits because I felt like these 2 sort of got the job done for me. So we kind of have like a big scooper here, and we have a tiny one for small details, which I'm going to use a lot for this design. Okay, so here is the top of my Speedball carving tool. I'm going to unscrew this part, and you can see that it's kind of hard to see here. Let me try focusing. There we go. So you can see that there's 2 half circle metal parts sort of meeting each other to make a full circle. And if you kind of wiggle it around a bit, you see that one of them is a little bit looser and thinner than the other one. So the top semicircle is the thinner one, and that's where we are going to lodge our tool in. So for example, I'm going to put in the larger tool that's labeled as number 5 on the back. I'm going to put that in the shovel side. The circular shovel side is going to go in here. So do you see that? This part is sort of like a semicircle this way, and it's going to go inside that semicircle. Okay, it's going to fit right in there, but you do have to tighten it. So tighten the head of the tool here, and now it's secure. So the first and most important lesson of this art class is that you need to carve away from your body. So my body is this direction, and I'm not going to carve into my body, just to be safe, right? We need to be really safe with these tools because they can be pretty sharp. So we're going to carve away from our bodies, and just practice on, practice on your other block, maybe doing this, sort of getting used to carving away from yourself. And then once you've practiced doing that, you're sort of going to practice, you focus again, practice doing it on the outer edges that you don't really need. So it gets some taking used to. So it's a lot harder than it actually looks to take everything off. Sometimes I just like to rip it off. You're going to end up with a lot of this afterwards, so you're going to have to do some dusting at the end. So just practice taking that out, taking out these edges here. And it really, really depends on what you're going for with your design. So think about everything that's carved is not going to be colored when you stamp it. So for example, let me show you. This is this one right here. So here's the actual stamp. So I didn't carve any of the outside actually, except the sort of the borders. I made it kind of rounded on the edges. And then I left everything as is except for the letters. So you can see that because it's carved inwards, it's not going to be colored when I stamp it. It's going to be a negative space. So think of this as sort of a negative and positive space, where your positive space is going to get colored by the ink when you stamp it, and then it's going to transfer as a color to the paper. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Let's see here if I can show you any other example. For the squirrel, this one's a little bit more complex, but you can see that I wanted the squirrel's body to be dark, and I wanted sort of the fur lines to be that negative space where it's blank. So, and of course I wanted the eye to pop out, so it's sort of a blank space, right? And the eyebrow and, you know, the little nut that it's holding, the little highlights on its body, the body shape, all of those things I wanted to be white, and the rest of it I wanted to be colored. So I hope this is starting to make sense to you as you think about your design and what parts you want to carve and what parts you want to leave as is. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something sort of similar to this design here, and I'm going to make, I want the background to be, I want the background to be colored. So I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to cut everything out and make it sort of like this. I'm going to make it so that it has a background color. Okay, so I'm going to carve these edges a bit, and I want the stamp itself to have these rounded edges so that it's not so sharp on the corners. Okay. All right. So just starting to carve away from my body. Remember that that is the most important thing that you can learn from this class. Okay. You can even make it into a circle if you wanted to. Okay, so I'm going to leave that a little bit and start carving this off, this corner. Okay, there we go. Oops. See, it can be a little dangerous sometimes, so be very, very careful. And the reason you want to carve away from your body is because you don't want to accidentally jam into your hand. So in case you slip, you're going to go into this space over here where hopefully there's nobody sitting right here. So if that is the case, you should definitely move and find a different spot because we don't want to hurt our family members or our pets or anything like that. Okay, so that's just kind of the ballpark shape that I'm going for. Oh, kind of want to smoothen out this edge here. Okay, there we go. So it's kind of this rounded square shape. Okay, and now what I want to do is I'm going to change my tool. So let's review how to change our tool out. I'm going to unscrew the head. I'm going to take this out, set it aside. Then I'm going to put this, I want to make sure that this is my tool and this part is being lodged into the carving head here. So I'm going to put it in that spot where there's a loose sort of disc in there, and sometimes it takes a few tries to get that sweet spot. All right, and then we're going to screw it back on so that it's nice and tight. Okay, so now this is where it starts getting a little harder. I want to have a outline of my ginkgo leaf. Okay, so I'm going to start with the stem here, carving away from my body. Okay, and I barely made a dent in there, so I'm going to have to go again, go a little deeper. You see how I sort of flip this around instead of carving this way? I'm going to turn my stamp around and I'm going to carve out. Okay. And it takes a lot of patience to get used to carving. So you just have to keep going. And you have to be pretty precise with your movements, especially if you're doing something a little bit more detailed. Okay, okay. I'm going to keep going around, making an outline of my leaf. If you aren't sure about the negative space and you really don't want to make a mistake, you can actually sort of color in the parts that you want to be carved out, or color the parts that you don't want to be carved out, whichever makes sense to you, if that's going to help you with your design and with deciding which parts to carve and which parts to leave. Okay. So it's a little hard to see, but you can see that I've done the outer edges of the ginkgo leaf. And now I'm going to start to do the same thing, but I want to carve some of these lines out because I want the lines to be negative space, or every other line to be a negative space. So you can see that I actually probably didn't need to put these lines on my pencil drawing, on my tracing paper because now they're just kind of distracting me because I can't, with my carving tool, it's only so thin, right? So I can't do every single line with my carving tool and make it deep enough and match perfectly. So I'm just sort of ballparking it right now, and it's sort of a guessing game. I'm putting thicker lines and then I'm putting thinner lines in between. So the thicker lines are going to be more deep and they're going to be more pronounced when it's on the paper, but the thinner lines are just going to be sort of faint lines. Okay, I still want some of my ginkgo leaf there because I want the stamp color, the ink color to come through. So I'm not going to touch it too much. I'm just going to leave as is, and then I put some little hash marks on the stem. And if you really want to make it very block printy, you can sort of do some like little carving marks on this space over here so that it's kind of more obvious that it's a block print. Okay, and I'm not going to make them too deep. They're going to be very, very subtle. So, all right, you're going to now grab your piece of paper and sort of move these crumbs away. And you're going to get your ink pad, and mine here is gold, so it's going to be super pretty. Okay, so moment of truth. You're going to use the ink pad. Make sure you're getting every corner and the body as well. Make sure you put enough ink on there. The corners, on the sides, everywhere. Okay. All right, we're going to see how that looks on paper. All right, here we go. Ooh, you can already kind of see what it's going to look like. All right, center it and make sure when you drop it down, you're not moving it. And you're going to press again on all corners, all the sides, and the body. Okay, here we go. Gonna peel it off carefully. So it's very faint because this stamp or this ink is very faint, but you can see my ginkgo leaf design. Cool, and then you can kind of see, oh, is that better? You can see those little hash marks here. Okay, now I'm going to take a baby wipe and wipe off this color here. Wipe off this color. And we're going to try it with a darker ink so that we can see and analyze it a little carefully. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over. And I'm going to get a darker ink pad. I'll use this blue over here. I wish I had green, but it's okay. So, this. Okay, that's probably going to show up a lot better. It takes some effort putting the ink on, because once you put it on paper, there's really no going back. So I mean, you can try to fill it in with like a blue marker after, but it doesn't look as authentic. So make sure when you're actually, you know, putting it on the ink, you're doing a very thorough job. Okay, here we go. I think that's good enough. So again, same thing. We're going to center it on the page. And carefully put it down, not move it. Press down. Okay, and voila, there we go. So there's my Ginkgo leaf design, and now that I'm looking at it, I can see, oh, I wish I hadn't made these lines so the outline so thick. I think it would be better if it was more delicate and thin looking. I do like these little hash marks that I made. You can see them really nicely with the darker ink. And I'm glad that I put some of those thin lines in between the thicker lines. But next time I'm actually probably just going to make all the lines really thin. So I still have my Ginkgo leaf drawing that I did earlier with you all. So I can do this again on my other block if I really want to. Or I can think of a new design because I'm actually pretty happy with how this turned out. All right, so that is the gist of how you do easy cut stamp making. And next time you can, or since you have 2 of these blocks in your kit, you can make a second one that's sort of a completely different design. You can do something more like this where there's no background. It's just the shape that's being stamped. This one obviously has a background. And you could do something like this where there's no background, but then there's like multiple outlines. So some of it will be negative space, some of it won't. And then there's some more details on the body. All right, so that concludes today's lesson. One thing that I wanted to mention is that, you know, what you do with your stamp can really be a creative choice as well. So you can put multiple of these on one page if it fits, and it can be kind of a motif. Or you can just have one in the center like I did. And you can also, like if you have your envelope, you can also print it right here, sort of on the sealed side, or you can do it on this side where you write the address to somebody. You can also use this for printing on like cloth as well. So if you had a tote bag, for instance, that you wanted to put your little emblem on, it probably will work with this ink, with these types of ink pads, but it might wash off once you put it in the washer. So you can consider doing other types of ink that's a little bit more permanent. All right, thank you so much. We'll see you next time for our next art class in February, which is going to be a knitting class. That one is going to be hosted by librarian Daniel, and he has prepared some awesome knitting kits for you all. So that's coming soon as well. Or actually, that just went live today on our catalog. So if you want to place a hold on a knitting kit, you can do that by searching knitting kit on our online catalog. All right, bye-bye everybody.